Qur'an, chapter 79, Surah Al-Nazi'at by Sayyid Qutb, translation by Muhammad Al-Amrani. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. By those who wrench forth with drowning force, by those who ease away with graceful glide, by those who swim in serene grace and rush ahead in a relentless race, by those who guide the course of destiny. On the day when the earth shall shudder and quake, followed by another greater tremor, hearts on that day shall tremble with dread, and eyes shall lower in humbled submission. They will say, "Shall we truly be restored to our former state, even when we are but dust and bones?" They will say, "Such a return would be a grievous loss indeed." Yet it will be but a single piercing cry, and behold, they will rise, awakened upon the earth's surface. Has the story of Moses reached you? When his Lord called him in the sacred valley of Tuwa, "Go to Pharaoh, for he has transgressed all bounds," and say to him, "Will you not seek to purify yourself? Shall I guide you to your Lord, that you may stand in awe before him?" Then he showed him the greatest of signs, but Pharaoh denied and defied. He turned away, striving against the truth, and gathered his people, declaring, "I am your Lord, the Most High." So God seized him with a punishment for both the first and the last. Indeed, in this is a lesson for those who fear. Are you harder to create, or the heavens above? He raised them high and fashioned them in perfect balance. He darkened their night and brought forth their dawn, and after that he spread the earth wide. He brought forth from it its waters and its pastures, and he anchored the mountains firmly, as a provision for you and your cattle. But when the overwhelming calamity descends, on the day when man will remember all that he strove for, and hellfire shall be laid bare for all to see, then, as for those who transgressed and clung to the life of this world, hell shall be their abode. But as for those who feared standing before their Lord and restrained themselves from desires, paradise shall be their abode. They ask you about the hour, when shall it arrive? But how could you possibly know? Its knowledge rests solely with your Lord. You are but a warner for those who dread it. On the day they see it, it will be as if they had not lingered but a single evening or a morning thereof. This surah stands as a luminous testament to the profound messages that echo through this section of the sacred text, designed to awaken the human heart to the overwhelming reality of the hereafter, its vastness, its solemnity, its gravity, and its deep-rooted place in the divine scheme of human existence. It reflects the celestial wisdom that governs the stages of our creation upon this earth, in its surface and in its depths, and culminates in the hereafter, which marks the ultimate fulfillment of this earthly sojourn. In leading the human heart to grasp the immense truth of the hereafter, the surah touches upon varied chords of the soul, stirring emotions and reflections that revolve around this grand reality. These resonances are deeply interconnected, laying a foundation within the human psyche, preparing it to receive this truth with heightened awareness and sensitivity. The surah opens with a mysterious and enigmatic prelude, stirring within the listener a sense of anticipation, awe, and trepidation. It unfolds in a trembling, breathless rhythm, as if capturing the essence of fear, shock, and sudden realization. By those who wrench forth with drowning force, by those who ease away with graceful glide, by those who swim with ease, by those who race ahead with swiftness, by those who arrange all matters. Following this mysterious introduction, the first scene of that day is revealed, mirroring the mood set by the prelude, as if the opening frames the nature of what is to come, on the day when the quaking shall quake, followed by another, hearts on that day will tremble in fear, and eyes shall be cast down. They will say, "Shall we indeed be returned to our former state, even after we have become decayed bones?" They will say, "Such a return would be a great loss. Yet it will be but a single cry, and behold, they will be upon the plain." From this atmosphere of shaking fear and breathless wonder, the Surah transitions to recount the epic downfall of the most arrogant denier through the story of Moses and Pharaoh. The rhythm of the verses softens, calming to match the tone of the narrative. Has the story of Moses reached you when his sustainer called him in the sacred valley of Tuwa? Go to Pharaoh, for he has transgressed all bounds, and say to him, "Would you not purify yourself? Shall I guide you to your sustainer so that you may stand in awe of him?" But he denied and defied. Then he turned away, hastening to his people, and proclaimed, "I am your Lord, the highest." So God seized him with the punishment of the hereafter and this life. Indeed, in that is a lesson for those who fear. This narrative smoothly leads back to the profound truth of the hereafter, transitioning from the historical to the cosmic, as the Surah invites us to contemplate the majestic signs in the open book of the universe, signs that testify to the divine power that created the cosmos and governs its destiny in this world and the next. The Surah presents these signs in expressions of compelling force and rhythm, in harmony with its opening and overall cadence. Are you more difficult to create, or the sky? He built it, raising it high and shaping it perfectly. He darkened its night and brought forth its daylight, and after that he spread out the earth, bringing forth from it its water and pastures, and he anchored the mountains as a provision for you and your livestock. Now, after these preparatory notes and suggestive touches, comes the scene of the great calamity, the final reckoning. It unveils the consequences of one's deeds in this life, portrayed in vivid scenes that resonate with the Surah's overarching theme. But when the great calamity comes, the day when man will remember all that he strove for, and hellfire will be exposed for all to see, then as for him who transgressed and preferred the life of this world, hell will be his abode. But as for him who feared standing before his sustainer and restrained his soul from vain desires, paradise will be his abode. In that very moment, when the soul is overwhelmed by the sense of the great calamity, when hellfire is laid bare for all to witness, and the fates of the transgressors and the devout are revealed, Ra turns its attention to those who deny the hour, those who question the prophet, peace be upon him, about its timing. The Surah responds with a rhythm that amplifies the sense of awe and the majesty of that hour. They ask you about the hour. When will it come to pass? But what concern do you have to mention it? To your sustainer belongs its finality. Fear it. On the day they see it, it will be as though they had not tarried except for an evening or its morning. The extended sound at the end of the Surah's verses enhances its grandeur and magnifies the awe-inspiring reality it conveys. By those who wrench forth with drowning force, by those who ease away with graceful glide, by those who swim with ease, by those who race ahead with swiftness, by those who arrange all matters. Some say these verses depict the angels, who wrench souls from bodies, glide swiftly in their tasks, swim through the realms above, race to fulfill their sustainer's commands, and arrange the affairs of the world. Others say these verses describe the stars, tearing through their orbits, moving with graceful swiftness from station to station, swimming through the vast expanse of space, racing in their appointed paths, and bringing about the effects and phenomena that influence life on Earth. Still others suggest that some verses refer to stars, while others describe angels. Yet, regardless of their precise meanings, What we feel in the atmosphere of the Qur'an is that their mention stirs a profound sensation in the heart, a feeling of apprehension, heightened alertness, and anticipation of something grand and awe-inspiring. Thus they serve as a powerful prelude, preparing the soul to receive the fear and awe of the quaking, the following catastrophe, and finally the great calamity itself. In keeping with this sentiment, we choose to leave these verses without delving into detailed interpretation or intricate discussion, allowing ourselves to dwell in the shade of the Qur'an, embracing its meanings and suggestions as they are. The trembling of the heart, its awakening, is an end in itself, sought by the Quranic message through various means. In this regard we take Umar ibn al-Khattab, may God be pleased with him, as our example. When he recited Surah Abasa and reached the verse and fruits and fodder, he remarked, "We know what fruits are, but what is fodder?" Then, realizing his own folly, he chastised himself, saying, "By God, O son of Al-Khattab, this is a burden you should not carry. What does it matter if you do not understand a word from the book of God?" In another narration it is said that he continued, "We know all of this, but what is fodder?" And then, in frustration, he broke the stick in his hand, saying, "By God, this is undue effort." What does it matter, O son of al-Khattab, if you do not know what fodder is? He then advised, "Follow what is clear to you from this book, and leave what is unclear." These words emanate from deep reverence before the majestic words of God, the reverence of a servant before the words of his sustainer, where the very veiling of certain meanings might itself be an intended purpose, serving a distinct objective. The opening of the surah comes in the form of an oath, introducing a matter that the following verses elaborate: "On the day when the quaking will quake," followed by another. "Hearts on that day will tremble, their eyes humbled. They say, shall we indeed be returned to our former state, even after we have become decayed bones? They say, such a return would be a great loss, but it will be but a single cry, and suddenly they will be on the surface of the earth." It has been said that the quaking refers to the earth as indicated in another verse, "on the day when the earth and the mountains will quake," and that the following quake refers to the heavens, which will follow the earth in upheaval as the sky is rent asunder and its stars scatter. It has also been said that the quaking refers to the first blast of the trumpet, which will cause the earth, mountains, and all living beings to quake, bringing death to all but those whom God wills. The following quake refers to the second blast, the one that will awaken them and gather them, as mentioned in Surah Al-Zumar, verse 68. Whether it is one or the other, the human heart perceives the tremor, the shaking, the terror, and the turmoil. It is shaken with fear, awe, and trembling, preparing it to grasp what will befall the hearts on that day. Fear so profound that it leaves no stability, no security. And so the heart feels and understands the truth of the words. Hearts on that day will tremble, their eyes humbled. The hearts are in utter turmoil, visibly humbled, overwhelmed by fear and brokenness, quaking and collapsing. This is what happens when the quaking will quake, followed by another, and this is what the oath by those who tear forth with drowning force, and those who ease away with graceful glide, by those who swim with ease, and those who race ahead with swiftness, and those who arrange all matters conveys. It is a scene that harmonizes in tone and rhythm with the opening of the surah. The surah then continues, describing their astonishment and bewilderment when they rise from their graves in utter shock. They say, Shall we indeed be returned to our former state, even after we have become decayed bones? They question whether they are truly being returned to life, retracing their original path. The phrase "return to their former state" alludes to their confusion, as if they are asking if they are retracing their steps back to life. They wonder how this could be, now that they are nothing but decayed bones, hollow and resonating with the wind. Perhaps, in a moment of clarity, they realize that this is indeed a return to life, but not the life they knew. It is the life of the hereafter, and with that realization comes the dread of loss and doom in this return, prompting them to exclaim, they say such a return would be a great loss, a return for which they made no preparation, for which they gathered no provisions, and for which there is nothing but pure loss. Here, in the face of this scene, the Quranic discourse affirms the reality of what is to come. But it will be but a single cry, and suddenly they will be on the surface of the earth. The cry here refers to the blast of the trumpet, but it is described with a word that carries a harsh, jolting tone in keeping with the atmosphere of the surah. The surface refers to the shining white earth of the gathering, the land of the resurrection, which we cannot know except through the truthful reports given to us, and about which we cannot add anything that is unverified or uncertain. This single cry is most likely the second blast, the blast of resurrection and gathering as inferred from other texts. The way it is expressed conveys a sense of speed, and the rhythm of the entire surah is imbued with this swift, urgent tone. The trembling hearts take on their quality from the rapid beating, and thus the consistency is evident in every movement, every glance, every shadow in the discourse. Then the pace of the verses slows somewhat in the next passage to match the tone of the narrative, as the surah recounts what transpired between Moses and Pharaoh, and what ultimately became of this tyrant when he transgressed. Has the story of Moses reached you? When his sustainer called out to him in the sacred valley of Tuah, saying, "Go to Pharaoh, for indeed he has transgressed," and say to him, "Would you not purify yourself? And I will guide you to your sustainer, so you may stand in awe of him." Then Moses showed him the greatest sign, but he denied and disobeyed. Then he turned his back, striving against the truth. So he gathered his people and proclaimed, "I am your sustainer, the Most High." So God seized him with a punishment in the hereafter and the first life. Indeed, in this is a lesson for those who fear. The story of Moses is the most frequently narrated and detailed story in the Qur'an. It has been mentioned in various surahs in different forms and with diverse details, each fitting the context of the surah in which it appears, contributing to the overarching purpose of that context, in the unique manner of the Qur'an storytelling. Here the story is presented in a condensed form with swift, vivid scenes, starting from the moment Moses was called in the sacred valley until Pharaoh was seized in this world and in the hereafter. This aligns with the central theme of the surah, the reality of the hereafter. This entire span of the story is conveyed in just a few brief and rapid verses, in harmony with the nature and rhythm of the surah. These brief, rapid verses encapsulate several episodes and scenes from the story. The narrative begins with an address to the prophet, peace be upon him. Has the story of Moses reached you? This is a rhetorical question meant to prepare the mind and ear to receive the story and reflect upon it. The story is then presented as an actual event, a conversation that took place beginning with the moment of divine calling and communion, when his sustainer called out to him in the sacred valley of Tuah. Tuah is likely the name of the valley located beside Mount Sinai on the right for someone coming from Midian in the north of the Arabian Peninsula. The moment of the call is one of awe and grandeur, a moment of profound significance. The call of God himself to a servant is a tremendous event, beyond what human words can fully express. It is a mystery of divine sustainership, as it is a mystery of the human condition that God has endowed this being with the capacity to receive such a call. This is the most we can say about this situation, which transcends human understanding. We can only stand at its threshold until God unveils its meaning to us, allowing us to experience it in our hearts. In other passages, there is a detailed account of the conversation between Moses and his sustainer at this moment. However, here the focus is on brevity and quick, powerful rhythms. Thus the narrative swiftly transitions to the divine command given to Moses, following the mention of the call in the sacred valley of Tua, "Go to Pharaoh, for indeed he has transgressed, and say to him, would you not purify yourself, and I will guide you to your sustainer, so you may stand in awe of him. Go to Pharaoh, for indeed he has transgressed." Transgression is something that should neither exist nor persist. It is a detestable thing, corrupting the earth and opposing what God loves, leading to what he abhors. To stop it, God sends one of his chosen servants, personally selecting him to attempt to put an end to this evil, to prevent this corruption and this transgression. It is such a detestable thing that God himself addresses a servant to go to the tyrant and try to turn him away from his path, giving him the chance to repent before God seizes him with a punishment in the hereafter and the first life. Go to Pharaoh, for indeed he has transgressed. Then God teaches Moses how to address the tyrant with the most beloved and heart-piercing style, hoping that Pharaoh might desist and fear God's wrath and punishment, and say to him, would you not purify yourself? Would you not cleanse yourself of the filth of tyranny and the stain of disobedience? Would you not find the path to righteousness and blessing? And I will guide you to your sustainer, so you may stand in awe of him. Shall I not show you the way to your sustainer? And when you know him, his fear will settle in your heart. For man only tyrannizes and disobeys when he strays far from his sustainer, when he loses his way to him, and his heart hardens and corrupts, leading to tyranny and rebellion. This was in the scene of the call and the commission. Then there was the scene of confrontation and proclamation. The narrative does not repeat the proclamation scene, as it suffices to present it here, summarizing the message in the scene of confrontation. The curtain falls on the first scene, only to rise on the final confrontation. Then he showed him the greatest sign, but he denied and disobeyed. Moses conveyed the message he was entrusted to deliver in the manner his sustainer had taught him. Yet this beloved approach did not soften the heart of the tyrant, who was devoid of any knowledge of his sustainer. So Moses showed him the greatest sign, the miracle of the staff and the radiant hand, as mentioned elsewhere, but Pharaoh denied and disobeyed. The encounter ended with denial and disobedience, recounted briefly and succinctly. Then the narrative shifts to another scene. Pharaoh turning away from Moses, striving to gather the sorcerers for a contest between sorcery and truth, unable to surrender to the truth and guidance. Then he turned his back, striving against the truth. So he gathered his people and proclaimed, I am your sustainer, the Most High. The narrative hastens to present the blasphemous, arrogant statement of the tyrant, summarizing his efforts to gather the sorcerers and the people. He turned his back, striving to plot and scheme, gathering the sorcerers and the crowds. Then the insolent, boastful words filled with arrogance and ignorance burst forth. I am your sustainer, the Most High. He uttered this statement, deceived by the heedlessness and submissiveness of his people. Nothing deludes tyrants more than the heedlessness, submission, and obedience of the masses. For the tyrant is but one man, who in truth possesses neither power nor authority. It is the heedless, submissive masses who offer their backs for him to ride, who stretch out their necks for him to pull, who bow their heads for him to exalt, and who surrender their right to dignity and honour, allowing him to tyrannize. The masses do this out of deception on one hand and fear on the other. And this fear is born of illusion, for the tyrant, being but one man, cannot be stronger than thousands or millions if they were to realize their humanity, dignity, and freedom. Each individual is equal in strength to the tyrant, but he deceives them into believing he holds power over them. No tyrant could ever oppress a noble nation, nor could he ever tyrannize a wise nation. No tyrant could ever oppress a nation that knows its sustainer, believes in him, and refuses to bow down to one of his creatures who has no power to harm or guide them. As for Pharaoh, he found in his people such heedlessness, such submission, and such a void in their hearts of faith that he dared to utter this blasphemous and insolent statement, "I am your sustainer, the Most High." He would never have dared to say it if he had found a nation that was aware, noble, and faithful, knowing that he was a weak servant with no power. If even a fly were to take something from him, he would not be able to retrieve it. In the face of this arrogant insolence following such atrocious tyranny, the supreme power of God moved. So God seized him with a punishment in the hereafter and the first life. Here, the punishment of the hereafter is mentioned before the punishment of the first life, for it is more severe and enduring. It is the true punishment that takes hold of the tyrants and sinners with its intensity and permanence. And it is fitting in this context, where the hereafter is the primary subject, aligning both thematically and rhythmically with the surah's focus on the hereafter and its musical cadence in the rhyme, in addition to its harmony with the main theme and fundamental truth. The punishment in this life was harsh and severe, so how much more so the punishment in the hereafter, which is even harsher and more grievous. Pharaoh possessed power, authority, and ancient inherited glory. So what of those who deny the truth and face the call of faith among the polytheists? Indeed, in this is a lesson for those who fear. For those who know their sustainer and fear him, they are the ones who perceive the lesson in Pharaoh's fate. As for those whose hearts lack piety, there is a barrier between them and the lesson, a veil between them and the admonition, until they collide with the consequences, until God seizes them with the punishment in the hereafter and the first life. Every soul is destined for its path, and every soul is destined for its end, and the lesson is for those who fear. From this journey through the fate of tyrants who boasted of their strength, the narrative returns to the polytheists who take pride in their power, reminding them of the greater forces in this universe, forces that render their power insignificant in comparison. Are you stronger in creation or the sky? He built it, raised its height and proportioned it. He darkened its night and brought forth its day. And after that he spread out the earth. He brought forth from it its water and pasture, and he anchored the mountains, a provision for you and your cattle. This question allows for only one answer, an unchallengeable surrender. Are you stronger in creation or the sky? The sky, beyond dispute and debate. So what deceives you about your own strength, when the sky is mightier in creation than you, and the one who created it is mightier still? This is one aspect of the question's implication. There is another. What makes you find resurrection so difficult to believe when the creation of the sky is far greater than yours? And your resurrection is merely the recreation of what was already created. The one who built the sky, which is mightier, is fully capable of recreating you, which is a far easier task. This sky, mightier in creation without doubt, he built it. Building suggests strength and cohesion, and so is the sky. solid, unshakable. Its stars and planets neither scatter nor stray from their orbits and courses. They do not collapse or fall apart. It is a firmly established and cohesive structure. He raised its height and proportioned it. The height of anything is its stature and elevation. The sky is raised in perfect harmony and proportion. This is the proportioning and proportioned it. Even a casual glance, a simple observation, attests to this absolute harmony. The knowledge of the laws governing these immense creations, coordinating their movements and effects, expands the meaning of this expression and deepens the understanding of this enormous truth, of which humanity, with all its sciences, has grasped only fragments. They stand in awe, overwhelmed by the grandeur of it all, unable to explain it except by assuming a supreme force that manages and controls it, though they might not be believers in any religion at all. He darkened its night and brought forth its day. The expression carries intensity in both sound and meaning, befitting the discourse on might and power. He darkened its night, meaning he veiled it in darkness, and brought forth its day, meaning he illuminated it. But the choice of words aligns harmoniously with the context. The alternating states of darkness and light in the night and early morning are realities visible to all and felt by every heart. Though these may be forgotten due to their repetition and familiarity, the Qur'an renews their freshness by directing attention to them, always new, forever renewing with each passing day a new experience, a fresh reaction. As for the laws behind these phenomena, they are of such precision and grandeur that they astonish and amaze those who understand them, making this reality ever wondrous and astounding as knowledge and awareness grow. And the earth after that he spread out. He brought forth from it its water and pasture, and he anchored the mountains. The spreading of the earth refers to its preparation and the laying out of its surface, making it suitable for walking upon, forming soil capable of supporting plant life. The anchoring of mountains results from the stabilization of the earth's surface and its temperature reaching the moderate level that allows life. God brought forth its water, whether it springs from the ground or falls from the sky, for it originally comes from the water that evaporated and then descended as rain. He brought forth its pasture, the vegetation that sustains both humans and animals, supporting life directly and indirectly. All of this came after the building of the sky, after the darkening of night and the bringing forth of day. Modern astronomical theories approach the meaning of this Quranic text, suggesting that hundreds of millions of years passed over the earth while it revolved, with night and day succeeding one another, before it was spread out, before it became suitable for agriculture, before its surface stabilized to the state we now find it, with its mountains and plains. The Quran proclaims that all of this was a provision for you and your cattle, reminding humanity of God's immense planning for them and hinting at the grandeur of God's design in his dominion. The building of the sky in this manner, the spreading out of the earth in this manner, were not accidents or coincidences. Rather, they were calculated with the creation of this human race in mind, creation that necessitates numerous alignments in the design of the universe, particularly in the design of the solar system, and even more specifically in the design of the Earth. The Quran, following its style of brief yet suggestive reference containing the essence of the truth, mentions here among these alignments the building of the heavens, the darkening of the night, the bringing forth of the day, the spreading out of the earth, the bringing forth of its water and pasture, and the anchoring of its mountains, all for the benefit of humans and their livestock. This suggests the truth of planning and design in some of its visible manifestations, accessible to everyone, suitable to address all people, in every environment and in every age. It requires no level of knowledge beyond what is available to humanity, wherever they may be, ensuring the Quranic message reaches all of humanity in all stages of their development, across all times. Beyond this level lie vast expanses and horizons of this great truth, the truth of planning and design in the creation of this vast universe. The impossibility of coincidence and randomness is evident, articulated by the nature of this universe and the nature of coincidence, which could never bring about all these remarkable alignments. These alignments begin with the fact that the solar system to which our Earth belongs is an extraordinarily rare arrangement among hundreds of millions of star systems. The Earth itself is a unique type among planets, with its location in the solar system making it suitable for human life. To this day, humanity knows of no other planet that meets all the necessary alignments, which are in the thousands. For the conditions necessary for life are found on planets of the right size at the right distance, with a composition where elements combine in the right proportions to activate the processes of life. The right size is necessary because the atmosphere remains around the planet due to its gravity. The right distance is necessary because a planet too close to the Sun is too hot for matter to hold together, and a planet too far from the Sun is too cold for those elements to combine. The right composition, with elements combining in the proportions that activate the processes of life, is necessary because these proportions are needed for the emergence of plants and the life forms that depend on them for sustenance. And the Earth's location where it is the best location for fulfilling these conditions essential for life as we know it, and we know of no other form of life yet. Recognizing the truth of planning and design in the creation of this vast universe and the calculation of humanity's place within it, designed with humanity's creation and development in mind, prepares the heart and mind to accept the reality of the hereafter with all its accountability and recompense with tranquility and submission. How could the cosmic creation and human existence, having reached their reality, fail to reach their fulfillment, their judgment? How could it make sense for it all to end with the brief life in this fleeting world, with evil and tyranny and falsehood escaping unscathed, while goodness, justice and truth suffer? This notion is fundamentally opposed to the nature of planning and design evident in the creation of this vast universe. Hence, the truth touched upon in this passage harmonizes with the truth of the hereafter, the central theme of the Surah. It serves as a fitting prelude, preparing the heart and mind for the mention of the ultimate overwhelming event, in its place and at its time. When the overwhelming catastrophe arrives, on that day when man will remember all that he strove for and hell will be laid bare for all to see, then as for him who transgressed and preferred the life of this world, hell will be his abode. But as for him who feared standing before his sustainer and restrained his soul from base desires, paradise will be his refuge. This worldly life is but a fleeting enjoyment, meticulously planned and intricately woven within the fabric of the universe and the creation of life and man. Yet it is an enjoyment that is destined to end. When the overwhelming catastrophe descends, it will overshadow all, overpowering the transient pleasures, the solidly built universe, the heavens raised high, the earth spread out, the mountains firmly set, and all life and its experiences. For this catastrophe is greater than all of that, engulfing and surpassing everything. On that day, man will recall his deeds, remembering and bringing them to mind, even if the distractions of life and its fleeting pleasures had made him forget them. He will remember them, but this remembrance will bring nothing but regret and sorrow as he envisions the torment and suffering that await him, and hell will be exposed to all who see, laid bare, clear to every eye, with the expression laid bare emphasizing its stark reality, its sound and sense pressing the image into every mind. Then destinies will diverge, and the final outcome of the divine plan in creation will be revealed. As for the one who transgressed and preferred the life of this world, hell will be his abode. The transgression here encompasses all who stray from truth and guidance, extending beyond mere tyrants, to include everyone who chooses this world over the hereafter, living solely for it without heed for what lies beyond. It is the awareness of the hereafter that balances the scales in a person's heart and conscience. Without it, all measures become skewed, all values distorted, and all principles of feeling and conduct in life go awry, marking one as a transgressor, a rebel, a violator of the bounds. For such a one, hell will indeed be the refuge. Hell, laid bare and imminent on the day of the overwhelming catastrophe. But as for him who feared standing before his sustainer and restrained his soul from its base desires, paradise will be his refuge. The one who fears standing before his sustainer does not dare to commit sin. If he does so due to human weakness, this fear leads him to remorse, seeking forgiveness and repentance, keeping him within the circle of obedience. Restraining the soul from desires is the pivotal point in this circle of obedience, for desire is the driving force behind every transgression, every rebellion, every sin. It is the root of affliction, the fountainhead of evil, and it is rare that a person is led astray except through desire. Ignorance is easily remedied, but desire after knowledge is the affliction that requires a long, arduous struggle to overcome. The fear of God stands as a solid barrier against the fierce impulses of desire, and few things can withstand its onslaught. This is why the Quranic context unites them in a single verse. The Creator of the soul, knowing its ailments and its remedies, speaks here. He alone knows its pathways and twists, knows where its desires and ailments lie, and how to chase them from their hidden lairs. God did not require man to eliminate desire from within himself, for he knows that this is beyond human capacity. But he did command him to restrain it, to control it, to hold its reins, and to use the fear of God as his aid. Through this arduous struggle, God has promised paradise as a place of rest and refuge, for paradise will indeed be the refuge. For God knows the magnitude of this struggle, its value in refining and elevating the human soul and raising it to the highest stations. Man becomes truly human through this restraint, through this struggle, through this ascension. He does not remain human by abandoning himself to his desires, by yielding to their pulls into the depths, under the pretext that this is natural within him. For the one who placed this inclination within the soul also endowed it with the capacity to hold its reins, to restrain itself from desire, to elevate above its pulls, and he has promised paradise as the reward and refuge when he triumphs, ascends and rises. There is a human freedom worthy of the honor God has bestowed upon man. This is the freedom of overcoming the soul's desires, of breaking free from the bonds of base instincts, of navigating them with balance, upholding the freedom of choice and human judgment. And there is an animalistic freedom, the defeat of man before his desires, his enslavement to his passions, the loss of self-control. This is a freedom championed only by a creature defeated in its humanity, enslaved, yet masking its enslavement in the false guise of freedom. The first is the one who has risen, ascended, and prepared himself for the exalted, liberated life in paradise, the refuge. The other is the one who has sunk, fallen, and readied himself for life in the depths of hell, where his humanity will be extinguished, where he will revert to a thing fueling the fire, among such as these people and stones. This is the natural outcome of falling and rising in the scales of this religion, which weighs the reality of all things. Finally, the closing rhythm of the surah resounds, vast, profound, and far-reaching. They ask you about the hour. When will it be? What is your position to mention it? To your sustainer is its finality. You are but a warner for those who fear it. On the day they see it, it will be as if they had not tarried except for an evening or its morning. The obstinate among the idolaters would ask the messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, whenever they heard the descriptions of the hour's terrors, its events, and what it leads to of reckoning and recompense, when will it be? Or, as it is phrased here, when will it arrive? The response, what is your position to mention it? A reply that hints at its magnitude and immensity, making the question seem trivial, feeble, even presumptuous. So it is said to the noble messenger, what is your position to mention it? It is far too great to be questioned about or asked about its timing. Its matter is with your sustainer, and it belongs entirely to him, not to you. To your sustainer is its finality. He is the one to whom all matters regarding it return. He alone knows its timing. He alone governs all that pertains to it. You are but a warner for those who fear it. This is your role, your limit, to warn those who are moved by the fear of it, those whose hearts perceive its truth, fear it and act in anticipation of it, expecting it at its appointed time, known only to its sustainer, exalted be he. Then the surah paints a picture of its enormity, its overwhelming impact on the senses and perceptions, reducing the life of this world to a mere span in the eyes of people. On the day they see it, it will be as if they had not tarried except for an evening or its morning. So overwhelming is its effect on the soul that the entire life of this world, with all its years, events, pleasures and possessions, will shrink in the awareness of its people until it seems like only part of a day, an evening or its morning. This life is short, fleeting, meagre, passing, cheap and insignificant. Shall they for an evening or its morning forsake the hereafter? Shall they for a fleeting passion abandon paradise, the refuge and reward? Indeed, this is the greatest folly, the folly that no one would commit if they hear and see,